Yeah, we're starting this over. Deftones White Pony. Their third album with, you know what, before we even get to that, some news of things I just, while doing this for research, found out about. Real talk. Terry Date is producing Ohms. I'm just now finding this out before even going into this album. While doing these reviews, thank God I did these reviews to find out that way. I'm about as excited as fucking any other Deftones. I mean, obviously this and these other three records, basically the first four. Let's get this right. Basically, all the way up to these four, and nothing until this record. That is until I also did some other research on the other album I'm talking about and found out about the other one album that never has been released, but has apparently been finished, was also going to be produced by Terry Day. Which has me wondering in conspiracy if there's a possibility that this new album, Ohms, which by the way, this album is having its 20th anniversary, is probably... excuse me. I'm unfiltered here in case for some reason Bateman decides to show up after that one text. But anyways, a shout out. Go check out Nerd. Also, shameless plug. Go check out Nerds in Suits and stuff with action industry is pretty cool. And just, you know. Things, but anyways. 28 years later, does it still hold up? Or in my case, has me finally growing on this thing and not being so far like some people who are more punk than anything. I know who you are. Yeah, I'm calling you out, but I'm not going to name drop you because I still have some form of respect for you because you did sort of play a part in a way of shaping some of my tastes a little bit. But I was so up these things to where not even the later albums were that for a while. Or at least to a point where after Still Titled I was done. I was going to call it quits with this band. You know? And then I heard about Diamond Eyes, which we'll talk more about that. Because that's within another review. But, yeah. I was so far up these. Mostly this one. A lot more even that has grown. That's some A-tier stuff there. But regardless, between that and not only that, the same man who did that and basically got us through the 90s with comparing to what is considered metal between Deftones with those four albums. And I probably didn't put it in the right order. Hold on a second. And these four bad boys right here. Who's planning on eventually... Well, no. These... Gosh darn it, I screwed up so bad. These four bad boys right here. These four bad boys right here. Here, and this bad boy is getting a facelift and look at that album cover. I mean, it needs it. I mean, everyone has already said this is a bad album cover, and the album cover that's on that thing, from what I've seen, that's how if you're going to have an album reinvented, it's still supposed to look like. Apparently he's mixing that thing, which I'm trying to see, who makes this one? Okay, they don't say who produced, but who makes this one? Fuck, I don't know. But anyways, we're not talking Pantera, we're talking Deftones. We are talking White Pony, which, yes, is a drug reference to essentially between meth and cocaine in general, but also apparently is a sexual reference. If you look at another particular song that I guess is kind of a one-hit wonder or two-hit wonder. Because the two-hit wonder would have been R. Kelly, but I don't think it's R. Kelly. Some other dude. Might as well have made that a sexual reference anyway, even though, but for other reasons. But anyways, the album, but it's mostly probably more drug related, given some of this. But it could be a double meaning as both, given some of the lyrical content on here of this record. And yes, as a joke. As a joke. I did, as you saw in the beginning, those who are fans of this band will basically, this, I bought this for, yes, and yes, I bought this version. Because I liked Back to School. I still technically do. I appreciate Pig Mag a heck of a lot more now, even for the guitar tone on that thing, damn. But this track was, in fact, everyone who basically, like I said, when it came to those certain forms of elitist mentality, when it comes to the first two records, and then maybe Passenger, or pretty much Back to School. That's how a lot of people felt, and that's how I did when I was younger. But I grew up, even more so having, it took probably a couple or some pickup records later to eventually appreciating the more atmospheric things in life, or music of, and the atmospheric music of life, or ambiance in general, or just some form of electronic music here and there, whether it be industrial or whatnot, but not as much as I have been with rock in general, and just knowing that this is album, just overall, is the experimental rock, alt metal album that it is, despite it being categorized as new metal. This album transcends, is amongst those that were lumped into that genre, that honestly transcend that genre to a point where even people of the screamo post-hardcore kid scene and the more indie hipstery sort of types of people that were interested in, and yes, even your more hip-hop guys, or at least your more experimental types of your trip-hop and your more glitch-hoppy. I mean, for Pete's sake, I believe some of the members that were involved in Death Grips were involved in working with Chino Marino for at least Team Sleep, I think. Or some other project besides that, or at least had been for a little bit, and they were supposed to work on something else, and it didn't, I don't know. Because Death Grips just did Death Grips stuff, and still being Death Grips. But anyways, the White Pony album itself, there's a gray album cover, by the way, which only has basically, which essentially only has, Fitzsierra. I will probably be butchering that track forever. Probably have been. Then there's, of course, up until this, but there is like a limited edition version that's like a pink and a violet or purple or something that you can kind of put together, and it makes up a story little thing. On top of that, you get the track The Boys Republic, which is a dang good deep cut for the band that you shouldn't sleep on. That from those limited editions, I don't have them. I got this version for that, even though I wound up recently getting the B-sides and rarities, which I think has it on there. But overall, this album was, at that time, I guess for what it was at that time, even though I didn't get it until I was late to the boat with this band. When I did get into them, though I did get them in high school, but it was like 2 years late when it came to this record. And of course, it was kind of shortly after the fact of self-titled, and I think I just kind of stuck with those records, and I never bounced away from the Terry Date produced albums. Though I gave Diamond Eyes a shot because I looked up and heard things on it being more like Around the Fur, which has still aged greatly for what it is. And I have a review. Go check that out. You may have to look in the ethers. Eventually, I'll make a playlist. Maybe for this Deftones. Who knows? And also, if you want my thoughts on all these, including where I rank this record, you should probably check my list. That's also somewhere in the ethers of this channel. So, shameless plug. And this is the first album, I believe, that has Frank Delgado actually being credited as a full-time member. As it was he was more just kind of credited as like additional stuff with turntables and stuff, as opposed to being a full-time member by this point during the past couple albums. And this would be the third project with Terry Date, who had been working with Pantera for a long time before this, for like 3 albums already, up until Far Beyond Driven, then before eventually working on Southern Treadkill, in between Adrenaline, and I think Southern Treadkill might have come up around the time frame that On the Fur had. And he was so busy with them that he was not able to do have any involvement in reinventing the steel up until this point, where he apparently there's a Revolution Is My Name, and I think that the whole album of Reinventing Steel, which also getting like I just said, getting a facelift. Overall, this album has been very experimental, consisting of focusing in more and honing in where their first couple records were more this alternative metal post-hardcore, with their first record being raw and of almost crust punk grindcore-y, as post-punk thrash in a very crust punk grindcore kind of way, while they matured a lot more, and it seems, having listened to some Smashing Pumpkins, Radiohead, and apparently hums Do You Prefer an Astronaut, which is something he has recommended, and other bands like Torch and Death Heaven have also cited those bands as well, and that's definitely shaped a little bit of what was technically Around the Fur. And personally, up until White Pony, I would say when it comes to Deftones, the whole Radiohead of metal thing in terms of sonic trajectory of that label, those first three albums are exactly that, or exactly slightly in line of trajectory to Radiohead's with their with their first three albums. Though after that, when it comes to like Radiohead's Kid A and then what they wound up doing on Self-Titled, that's when they wanted to kind of different. Like basically with Self-Titled, they may as well have just made Hail to the Thief before Radiohead decided to even come up with. Before Hail to the Thief was even a thought for Radiohead. So that's the way I see with this record, even though you can kind of also hear the other things. And I've said a lot more about Around the Fur on that review. Again, go check it out. As far as this album's concerned, despite what most people will say, I totally do. I do like Back to School for what it is. Even though it's a more hip hop rap oriented style in comparison to what they would wind up having done with the initial original version of the final track in Pink Maggot, which great closer, by the way, closes this album out beautifully, even more so with the heartbeat being like the last thing you hear. Just like after going off from all that, and then just to go from talking about you're gonna stop, I'm drunk, but I'm heard. It's more about a lot of things that he's kind of dealt with from his own experiences that he's more so just had when he was around in high school and kids like that, stuff like that, which mostly is what it seems that between Back to School, what Sierra does, which opens this album, Digital Bath, which is more about, which has this sort of a lot of high school romanticism sort of thing, or scholarly romanticism of some sort. When dealing with things like Fifth Sierra, Elite is basically more about these people who act like they're trying to be this thing when they've already been this thing. Just be you, dude. You're already elite in your own right, but you're not. You don't have to pretend to be this type of elitist type of mentality when you already are, just by being yourself, and just mostly just laughing at these. And that's what this whole lyricism is. And it's a very industrial rock heavy song, and it somehow has been the song on this record that has been Grammy nominated for Best Metal Performance. I can't really tell you exactly what were the other nominees that year that was considered, which I'm guessing was around 2001, 2000. If it was 2001, then yikes, given Roundup coming up around that time frame of albums and stuff that would have gotten a... But anyways, That would have been a stretch. Following it up with Prescription Queen, the whole thing with it's like bathtub electrocution thing or something when it came to like digital bath. The whole way of doing, I feel like, of how he vocally, where he's going off on and hitting his like this really high falsetto to the point of this high form of falsetto with I feel like more almost to the point where it just comes off almost BDSM in its own weird way, even though it's kind of not that. Prescription Queen being about mostly this follow of someone who basically just, it's more of a toxic relationship, and even more toxic given that you're basically causing that person to be a druggie or something. It's more Prescription Queen or Drug Queen, basically. Or a relationship that's based on drugs. Like, that is that level of toxic, I guess. Street Carps is more just him kind of BSing it. It was kind of meant to be like a Morrissey thing for him or something. The way it was supposed to come across. Teenager was an acoustic thing that also deals with relationships. In a similar way. Knife Party was some crazy thing that also had this weird Arabic thing, singer that was doing these weird, female singer that's doing these weird screams that really just, so does these weird screams that can kind of make this song a lot more seemingly uncomfortable, but somehow still work as being heavy in its own right. Korea's just, mostly you just wrote the song, just named the song this, just because there was never a song named it, so screw it. But it's a pretty heavy band. It's definitely one of the heavier deep cuts for sure. And I mean, Elite has a good riff too. And apparently it's a rare thing to hear Elite, by the way, because Elite is just wow. Oh man. And just is just, and the way he brings his vocals when he's not using the vocoder or something, or like a voice vocal processor of some kind on like that allows him to come off robotic in his vocal delivery of like maybe around the chorus ish, or at least the post pre-chorusy thing that he's got going. This "We are the nightmares, we are the mistakes" lines stuff like that. And of course, then we get, after Korea, we get the classic Maynard James Keenan collab that they've yet to really top, though there has been many versions live of this with many other artists that aren't Maynard. I think even Stiletto of freaking Periphery was involved in one of them. It was alright, but most people, when it comes to it that isn't Maynard, they usually, and I think even, if I'm not mistaken, even the Greg Picciotto of formerly of once and now defunct Dillinger Escape Plan actually collabed with them on and did Maynard's parts as well. But they weren't but it just wasn't the same. And given it's meant to be a female perspective of basically someone basically them going to town, or him and this girl going to town, about him and this one girl encounter he had with a woman that basically them going to town on one another while going 90 to nothing. I think there's a movie kind of similar towards something like that, but that I saw one time on IFC that was weird and was pretty old too. I don't remember the name of it, but anyways, if you do leave a comment below, let me know. You'll know what I mean. And because like the couple looked like Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon to me from Sonic Youth. They look like them. You know what I mean? But anyways, of course the classics and Maynard's vocals. I loved this song a lot. It's like getting your cake and having your ice cream. It's while also getting like a bunch of ice cream at the same time. So basically like a DQ ice cream cake of songs on this album is Passenger. It's insane. Changing House of Flies was pretty good. House of Flies is still a classic in its own right, and seemed to have been a follow-up a little bit to what they were already doing with some of the stuff that they had. That was a great lead single choice, even though some people weren't really sure about it at the time. And then there's, and of course, like you said, Pink Maggot with great guitar lines as well. And plus, like, Abe Cunningham killing it on the drums here. Drums around the end of Changing the House of Flies. It's such a shame that they didn't incorporate that as much in the single, or at least for the video. That's a cut away on the eye, and you barely get to hear Abe just cutting loose, you know. It's just a shame, man. But even though some people might bitch about the way the drums are done, maybe between that and maybe the other album I'll be talking about, this was like 20 years later. This album still holds up, and just like I had said in my little random rankings thing, or whatever I had called it at the time, I need to look back up on that. It's been a while since I've done those. But this album still holds up as like top tier, aside from Around the Fur. I love what it's done here, but we'll see how that will play in once Ohms comes out, if it does live up to anything at all, you know, or it'll just, you know. But either way, looking forward to Ohms. I definitely got some White Pony vibes in a good way, or what worked when it came to the recent track Genesis of Ohms. So that's going to be something for sure. But yes, this album still slaps from start to finish, as it had before. Even though I initially didn't 20 years, or at least 18 or so years ago, when I had gotten this record, when there used to be this one site, I forgot what it was called, but where you could get your CDs and through the mail and stuff, and that's how I wound up getting those first 4 out Deftones records, and every other one I just went to like a Best Buy or something back when they used to do CDs. Remember that? While it was still kind of relevant, you know. But yeah, overall, I like this record. What did you guys? Overall, I still love this record. It still rocks its masterclass, as it should, and always will be, amongst the many classics, and of the bands that are considered having been part of nu metal, and with this album alongside the 2 albums from Linkin Park sandwiched in between, and Meteora, that are in line with similar ilk to what Deftones was doing with Meteora and Hybrid Theory, is definitely up there amongst those albums. I'm not one of the guys that will say that about Toxicity, and would probably prefer the album, prefer what we wound up getting from Steal This Album, and which were B-sides, figure that, and what the self-titled was. But that's kind of my thing about it. Overall, I enjoyed this thing. Chino's vocals have been great. Overall, have been great. This thing still holds up for what it is. And Boys Republic, you should probably check that out if you have never had a chance to hear it. It's pretty solid deep cut, I'd say. I wish I mostly didn't, between that track and just getting those 2 limited edition versions of those albums, just as a collector's item would be cool to get in my repertoire, just to prove myself as a Deftones fan, even though I pretty much have every main studio album, and I recently got the B-side. So, but yeah, overall, what did you guys think of White Pony? Does it still hold up for you 20 years later? Well, apparently there's a Deftones. Look up this and not only subscribe to actual Deftones, but the Deftones Live thing. They did a stream during when it was legitimately the 20th anniversary earlier this year. And even their live stuff sounds really good, including the performance of all their or at least of the best performances that they had, and they all sound really just as good as it came off the album itself. And yeah, overall, just check this out. It's still holds up as pretty much a classic. What did you guys think? Leave a comment below. Let me know. So always guys, keep it random. Keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you in the next video where I'll more likely be talking about the 10th anniversary, the other Deftones album celebrating an anniversary this year. In preparation for Ohms, their new album coming out this year, Ohms, which should be coming out as of the recording of this Friday. This coming Friday. I don't know if I will be able to talk about it without the physical copy within the time frame that it does come out, but so you know, I will be finding a way to get that physical copy. As a Deftones fan, I cannot get that CD. Not get that CD. So, yes, I'm using double negative. Whatever. But, overall, what do you guys think? Again, leave a comment below. Let me know. Rock that like button with thrust if you must. Also, link in the description to my Facebook page here at Rockin' Movies with Tyler. I'm Tyler. Once again, because I can't know when to end a video, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. As always, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, y'all.